now 7 o'clock and it's time for the State of the Nation, where we put our pulse on the nation and, well, check whether we have a healthy heartbeat. Now, we do know that one of the things that has made headlines this week is the appointment of Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka as, to head a joint monitoring and evaluation commission of peace in southern Sudan. And this is shortly after he made a statement during his dad's funeral, and this was to the effect that he is now willing to be Uhuru Kenyatta's errand boy, and nobody should separate him and Uhuru Kenyatta. We also do know that after the handshake, Raila Odinga also got an appointment with the AU. And of course, that has meant that there has been several shifts in terms of the voice of the opposition, and that's what we'd like to discuss. Now, a quick reminder of the question that we have this morning. With Raila and Kalonzo's appointment, is Kenya's opposition dead? Again, there are those who argue that Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, or NASA principles for that matter, do not constitute the opposition. We do have other people that are the voice of the opposition. There are those who feel that, again, they are the ones who have championed the issue of opposition very loudly and very vibrantly. So I don't know what your take is on that. I'll just read some of your comments before we begin our discussion here with Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who is the leader of the Third Way Alliance party. And Masai Okoti says that I know all he wants to say is that I am the opposition in Kenya. Let him try in the next election. I guess that's referring to Dr. Ekuru Aukot. He's here. He's going to basically tell us what that is all about. We also have somebody who says that yes, the opposition died at the point where we had the handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. We certainly are in trouble as Kenyans. Are we in trouble as Kenya? As things as bleak as that? That's a discussion we're going to have. We'd also like to let you know that the phone lines are open. We'd like to hear what you have to say as we continue with this discussion. Good morning, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Mike.
And let's start with that very question of the opposition. First of all, maybe let's define opposition. What is opposition? There are those who feel that the opposition is literally synonymous with Raila Odinga.
First of all, they're very wrong, because I think even the recent events have actually proven them wrong, that people who have been masquerading as opposition have not really played the opposition role effectively. In fact, their pretense about opposition has been about how do we get into government. It's an exposure of the fact that they have never really wanted to lead alternatively, because opposition, simply defined, is alternative to the government of the day, offering alternative policy views. When a government makes a certain policy view, you can actually give an alternative, or you can oversight government. You can ask government to account. For example, on questions corruption, for example, that we now know that our country is really on its knees because there's wanton theft of public money. You will expect an opposition party or leadership to be able to ask government to account from two perspectives. We can talk about opposition inside parliament, of those elected representatives of the people who can then oversight government activities or decisions in that parliament, because we also have government in parliament. Then you also expect opposition outside parliament. This is where the rest of us now fall into. And our constitution has given us an avenue in Article 119 to be able to petition or to give our views on any matter of public policy or law. So that's really opposition. Opposition is alternative to government. So far, I think what we have seen in the most recent events is that the people who have been saying opposition, their opposition, are actually proving that what they've been saying is a mockery of our electoral democracy, is a mockery of our political contest, because it has now proved that whereas they craft an idea around themselves that they are the opposition, but actually if you analyze, Mike, what is it that they have actually done in terms of oversight in government? Because it seems to me, people who talk about opposition in Kenya do not have an iota of knowledge about what opposition is.
But allow me to interrupt you there and just, you say it's alternative government and it's giving oversight to government. Are you then saying that with the handshake, for example, and with Raila Odinga, for example, agreeing to work with government, that he cannot oversight? He still has a voice?
He cannot, because he's compromised already. And first of all, in fact, I wish we could stop discussing about the handshake, because the handshake is many things. Whereas, for example, Has Estadio Alliance Kenya supported the idea of making truce, making peace through the handshake. But we also ask questions that we must go beyond. So just before I say one or two things about that handshake, first and foremost, the handshake was a mockery of the 2017 general election.
Why?
It was a mockery because those who eventually succumbed to the handshake actually proved that they had no intention of leading this country.
But Dr.
The intention was to get into government. The intention was to not even believe in the rule of law, because now we have seen the people who are, talking about the handshake. I'll tell you why it's a mockery. Last year, about 300 people were killed because of the kind of politics that was propagated. There was a question of boycott of an election. There was something around resisting some companies and economic and all that. Basically, there was sabotaging of our country. Then after the handshake, we did not see genuine apologies from this individual saying, first of all, I want to stand down as the so-called people's president because there is an illegitimately elected president. What I think President Uhuru has done and his Jubilee is to actually encourage political hooliganism, political thuggery, and criminality.
How has he encouraged that?
He has encouraged this because
the handshake, from where we see it and from where we understand it, is that there needed to be a truce. There needed to be a call of a ceasefire between what we'd call, just brazen attacks on each other.
First of all,
we must appreciate that Uhuru Kenyatta has a following. Raila Odinga has a following.
That's true.
And those people definitely command a certain... Those people that follow him or follow them, listen to what they say.
So let me tell you where the departure for me is. I saw the handshake as initiating the path to reconciliation in this country. And when you begin a path to reconciliation, you must then be honest about the wrongs that you did. For example, I would have expected Raila Odinga to say, listen, I apologize to my brother, President Uhuru Kenyatta, but they up until now, most recently, I think he has hardly called President Uhuru Kenyatta. He's always said, my brother. So I think because he saw himself, and remember he also said this, that the handshake was between two presidents who had been sworn. Remember, he said that publicly. That's why he did not invite Kalonzo. That's why Ruto was not invited. So he actually admitted. To this very date, I think Raila Odinga has remained disrespectful to our constitution. And so is President Uhuru. Because when Raila Odinga swore himself as president, he actually offended our constitution. Article 3, subsection 2 of that, or sub-article 2 of that constitution, that says you cannot purport to form an alternative government other than by way of an election. And that's exactly what he did. So what I'm saying is, it's a mockery of the last year's general election because we have a legitimately elected president declared by the Supreme Court. Then somebody else decides, I'm going to also swear myself in. Let me give you a perspective, Gitonga. If today I, Ekuru Aukot, coming from Turkana County, decide I'm going to be a warlord, no oil will leave Turkana until, something else happens. And then I think President Wu should not even allow that kind of conversation to come from someone like me. They should bundle me inside prison immediately. I think for me, why I'm saying handshake is a mockery of our electoral democracy is because we must respect the rule of law. We must respect the outcome of an election. And when you lose an election, play your opposition role, play alternative. So I still think that whereas it was a good thing, it was a truce, but I think we are also propagating this idea that there was conflict and fighting. Yes, there were tensions, but why were those tensions being brought? Because there are people who deliberately decide, let's hold this country hostage for purposes of us getting into government. And that's what we have seen. We saw Raila, Kalonzo, and the NASA principals hurling insults at each other against President Uhuru. Now, for me, they displayed very bad behavior before our children, before the nation, and then eventually they crawl back and say, now we have had handshake, and it hasn't really united the people of Kenya. I have done rounds, we've now gone to about 13 counties with our Punguza Mizigo campaign, and I'm telling you, there is deep-seated anger, deep-seated betrayal. Largely the Kikuyu community who had been told that Raila Odinga is an enemy, I think voted overwhelmingly for President Uhuru Kenyatta. The Luo nation, who I think supported Raila overwhelmingly, like you rightfully say, were shown that the people who support Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, who are Kikuyu predominantly, are bad people. All those people now have been left desolate very surprised and very shocked and wondering. So we are all being led into some sort of a death trap, only for these guys to now begin to fraternize themselves. So
but
it is bad leadership, if you ask me.
But do you agree that the handshake was a good beginning? Maybe what is now percolating and what is being revealed out of it may not be
Mike,
what Kenyans desired or thought, but was it a good beginning?
Mike, on the 10th of March this year, we were the only political party that issued a statement, comprehensive statement, congratulating President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga for the handshake. But we also said, let's go beyond the handshake.
All right.
Can Raila now step down as the people's president? Can he up? Can we see some accountability from the part of government who killed like Chris Msando, Baby Pendo, and all those people? We said, at least let's be honest about what happened. We also think that it is dishonest to say after the handshake we forget all the other things, include standstill. You remember the every Monday demonstrations, you know, the boycott. So again, let's say, okay, then how do we then reconcile really the bases that supported both these people? Because like I told you, Mike, through our Punguza Mizigo, Kenyans are like left hanging.
So according to you and from your experience, what you're saying is that the unity that we're seeing at the top, if we can call it unity, maybe some might argue that it is just interests.
Not to cut you short, it's not unity.
What is it?
It is the purpose of, it is just tumbocracy, democracy confirmed.
Are you then saying that Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Uhuru Kenyatta literally are bedfellows purely out of their own selfish interests?
It's absolutely that, because it's also showing a pretentious leadership in this country, a leadership without integrity, because you cannot go on insulting each other publicly, saying all the nasty things that we heard about last year, and then all of a sudden you pretend. So it's a pretentious leadership. For me, it is really showing bad example to our young people. Many people who, I mean, and I'm hoping that a new generation of Kenyans will actually rise up and say, we cannot play that kind of politics. And I wish we can encourage, the elderly should be able to encourage that we can differ on issues. We can have different opinions. But again, let's not go to the extent of almost bringing the country down, and then later on we pretend.
But Dr. Okot, we were not going to continue as a country. That was not a way to go, with them hurling insults at each other. We must admit and agree that it was a mature thing for them, and this was unexpected in all quarters.
You know that's a settled point. It's a settled point that, yes, the handshake was good, and even we congratulated, but we expected them to go now beyond and address some of the problems.
Let's then define what is beyond. What is it that you expected out of the handshake, or where has the handshake gone wrong? Is it because of the appointments?
Gitonga, I think we have dwelt so much on this handshake right from March up until now. To be honest with you, and maybe I should ask you this question, what is it that you people from the media house see as the benefit of the handshake, besides the fact that it brought some calm? Because Kenyans are expecting that the state of the economy should be addressed. There is theft of public money. There is desperation. There is unemployment. There is the whole question of affordable health care, affordable housing, an economy that is not producing but just consuming. Those, for me, are the issues that we should be addressing today. We should be addressing what's happening with the nurses, welfare, doctors, teachers, and all that. I think that's, for me, is where we should take the conversation. I think we are dwelling so much on a handshake, which really is of no benefit to Kenyans. Remember, it is, first of all, it has now culminated into just political conmanship at the end of the day. So I really think, I wish we could move to discussing what are the issues that actually concern Kenyans now. I wish you guys could also be focusing now on Ekuru Okot, tell us about the benefit Punguza Mizigo is going to bring on Kenyans. You see, let's talk about things that are beneficial.
And of course, some will say that's just a campaign strategy, but you talked about opposition being an alternative.
Yes.
Let us talk about that alternative. Yes. What is it that the opposition, in this case, yourself and others, would be expected to bring on board for the sake of Kenyans? And again, let's remember that even the previous opposition, if we can call it previous, NASA, had told us that at the point where we take over leadership, one of the things that we're going to sort out is the standard of living of Kenya and the cost of living, which has gone to it's skyrocketed. How do we solve that?
So, for example, I would have expected that the opposition that is in parliament should have opposed the passage of the Division of Revenue Law number 7 of 2018. That law robbed Kenyans of 500 billion Kenya shillings. Why? Because the parliamentarians who masquerade as opposition inside that parliament, who are led by now these two principals who have actually betrayed their cause, passed a law which is unconstitutional, based on the financial year 2013-2014, which was 937 billion Kenya shillings, as opposed to the most recent audited accounts of 2016-2017, which was 1.4 trillion. So in other words, Kenyans lost 500 billion. So I'll have expected the opposition in parliament or outside parliament to actually raise that issue. The only party that raised that issue is Third Way Alliance Kenya, and I'm not campaigning here. I'm just telling you I played my role as opposition party outside government. We raised that concern. We raised the concern around the appointment of cabinet secretaries, PSS. That's what we expected the opposition to do. We raised the concern around the passage of the 2013 VAT Act, which actually was imposing VAT on petroleum-related products and tax exempting certain things. We raised that concern. Parliamentarians did not listen to us. We petitioned Parliament. They never even tabled our petition as the law requires of them. So we actually have a failed opposition inside Parliament. The only opposition that is alive today is one that is outside Parliament. And that is the kind of opposition that the rest of us are playing. And we've given our views, and you know, we've called you guys for press conferences. We've given alternative views on what we think government should do. We've given views on austerity measures, on the State of the Nation address as an alternative political party. We've never had the rest to do that. So we will play our role. We will continue to oversight government. We will continue to hold government accountable. We will also continue to propose things that benefit Kenyans, including, for example, our proposed amendment to the Constitution. And we have said that let's amend the Constitution of this country to reduce overrepresentation, because we do not see the benefit of that bloated parliament today. A parliament where its members admit we were bribed by 10,000 inside the toilets so that we can shoot down a report that could have been injurious to the people of Kenya. We are also proposing to increase more allocation, more funds from current 15% to 35% to the counties. Our proposal is also, let's adapt the ward as the primary unit of accelerated development, so that in every ward of this country, we should begin to see good schools, hospitals, roads, employment, and all that. And we are proposing to fight corruption in our proposed amendments. Among as many other things, we are proposing to cap salaries of elected officials. We are proposing to elevate Senate into a house with veto power so that it can oversight Parliament. So this is what I believe the opposition role should be all about.
Okay.
Yeah? And let me just add one more thing. A proper opposition role should have shut down the Adan Duale bill that was the other day tabled in Parliament to propose more additional seats into Parliament. Now, compare that with the Punguza Mizigo campaign, which is really how do we reduce the cost of governance in this country, as opposed to such a bad, hopeless bill that increasing more weight on Kenyans. And we have said to parliamentarians, the best formula on how to bring equality or equity between men, all the gender, men and women in leadership, is the one that's being proposed by Third Way Alliance Kenya, because our proposal is simple. We abolish the 290 constituencies, we abolish nominated seats, we abolish the women rep composition. We now adopt the 47 counties as single constituencies for purposes of election, and they will elect one man, one woman into the National Assembly. Okay?
All right.
That already achieves 50-50 gender parity. So if you have a leadership in Parliament that really cannot see the benefit of what other people are proposing, and we have petitioned them on this, surely, then yes, we have a dead opposition, but that dead opposition is inside Parliament, not outside Parliament.
Okay, let's now focus and look at things that cause us to fight every 5 years. Okay. And unfortunately, we seem to bury our heads in the sand every time that we feel that, we need to move on. There's the famous, statement in Kenya, let us forget and move on. Now, here we are with the principals working together, but the reasons, some of the reasons why we were on the verge of fighting in 2017 was election malpractices. What do you see as a solution? Because we have another maybe 4 years to go, but we seem not to be resolving or talking about that now. We're concentrating on let's just forget and move on.
And I think that's a very powerful question that you've asked, a very important one, that I hope Kenyans can also now begin to debate. If we have a leadership that, for example, led this country into what they call electoral malpractice or injustice, now abandoning that cause because they have had a handshake and because they have been appointed into positions, then the question is this. We were then duped, many of us. And I think for me, a leadership that abandons its followers, especially if they were subjected to electoral malpractice and injustice, is not a honest leadership. But moving forward, We are proposing in our Punguza Mizigo campaign that we need to begin to punish electoral offenders. In fact, I just came back from Kabarak University yesterday giving a lecture to the law school where they were actually asking this very question. And the question now is, when a court of law, for example, the Supreme Court of Kenya last year, in nullifying the election of August, said that there were irregularities and illegalities, which means some people committed electoral offenses, which are actually criminal in nature. What we are proposing as a party right now is that we want to see DCI, the Director of Criminal Investigation, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution grab those judgments that identify irregularities and illegalities and begin to investigate with a view to finding the real culprit who actually committed those irregularities and illegalities. And we want to see those people being punished. We would have wished that a leadership that failed in the last general election and one that was leading a campaign about electoral injustice will now be on the lead and will not accept itself to be compromised by being incorporated in government, because it could be a strategy of Jubilee. And honestly, I tend to think that Jubilee genius is on how to destroy the opposition. And I think they have, especially that opposition that has masqueraded for a long time. Because it seems to me that even going back with the slogans of last year, NASA how, NASA how, it seems to me it's a Jubilee or Uhuru Kenyatta who actually conceptualized the idea of NASA.
Of NASA.
And now they have NASA.
So do you think it's a deliberate attempt by Jubilee with the appointments to literally silence completely the opposition? And let me not even use the opposition, but to silence NASA.
To me, I think you have to give it to Jubilee. You have to say Jubilee actually probably have got the best strategists, best thinkers. It's like, how do we silence these people? Because Jubilee is not, as a government of the day, is not addressing electoral injustice, for example. It's not addressing corruption. It's not addressing question of accountability. We are borrowing money to steal. There's so much theft happening in our country. So Jubilee has been left to run amok in the governance of our country. And the only way they could have done that is say, okay, who have been the noisemakers, the loudest noisemakers, with a reasonable following, or with a good following, if you like. Raila Odinga is a leader who is being followed. So give him a job and silence him. And since then, it's true, you've never had Raila say anything. The other one was Kalonzo Musyoka, desperate for a job, even had to follow the president all the way to China. I think that's where the deal was brokered. Eventually, he even admits unashamedly that I'm willing to be the errand boy of Uhuru. And I think for me, I spoke to a few of my friends from Ukambani, where I think he commands a following, and they are extremely disappointed. But you know what? What surprises me, Mike, is that we are surprised with their outcome.
Are you not surprised?
I'm not surprised. Last year, we told you guys, and I think I said here on this your very bench, that Jubilee and NASA's political Siamese twins. People didn't believe us. I mean, there's even a lot of cartoons that we drew to demonstrate how they are Siamese twins and that they will meet. I mean, I'm not a prophet of doom, neither am I a son of one, but I mean, the prophecy has come to pass.
All right, hold that thought. I'll come back to you, and I want to know what the difference between Third Way Alliance and other political parties is. But let me take a call from Gerald Maingi in Kwale. Good morning, Gerald, to your comment or question.
Yes, good morning. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Say hi to Mr. Kurokot.
Okay.
Okay, my contributions, the first is Mr. Kurokot and the rest were talking about referendum, and the talk has now gone down. Now my question is, Mr. Kurokot, how are you going to ensure that the referendum passes on? My second question, Mr. Kurokot has been to blame Jubilee Party, opposition leaders. How is he going to ensure that as he plans to upcome as a new declared opposition leader, how is he going to ensure that he portrays the roles of Kenyans by defending us as opposition leader? And my contributions are on our narrative. Life is going to be hard for we. Things are not well, because the moment the shilling is triggered, the economy of Mwananchi goes harder and harder.
Okay.
Putting food on table has been so hard for we. But we keep on blaming other leaders for the handshake and whatever. But what we need to see someone who can take a stand of an opposition leader, someone that you can trust, someone that you can entrust your life with.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gerald. And remember, the phone lines are open. So if you'd like to call to comment or maybe even pose a question, agree or disagree with possibly what has been said so far, you're welcome to do that. But to his question, and that is to do with the role of opposition. And also, one of the things I think he brings out is a question of trust. And the reason why maybe Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, and all those leaders have following is because possibly they have built trust over time with their followers for whatever reason. And the question then would be, even as you stand as opposition leader or a member of opposition, have you built that trust? Do you have the numbers?
I am building the trust. I mean, right now, if you look at, for example, what we are doing as a party on this Punguza Mizigo, we have so far have 620, I think last time I checked last night, 620,000 endorsements on the idea of Punguza Mizigo, which is really, which resonates with many Kenyans. I think trust is earned over time, based on your actions, based on what you do. I would say that I may differ that I don't think that Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka or Uhuru's following is necessarily as a result of earned trust. I think it's partly blind political following, a blind tribal following, which of course Ekuru Aukot does not have.
Well, you can call it what you like, but the truth of the matter is the reason why they vote for those people is because there must be an amount of trust that they're going to represent them in one way or the other.
You see, I think we need to define trust. You see, for me, trust ought to do with, can I trust you to do the right thing for me? Right now, as I say to you, we've been to parts of central Kenya. We were in Nyanza a week and a half ago, and people are feeling betrayed. People are feeling that we trusted these people, we voted for them, we followed them all these years, but we've been betrayed. So I think for me, it brings in another level of defining this following. And for me, I think another level of defining this following is that when people are mobilized around ethnicity, around politics of those people are bad, then of course you instill fear in people. I think for me that does not amount to political trust. It does not. Sorry, I would love to differ with that. There may be those who actually trust them, but I think a majority of Kenyans, I will tell you, because our politics is largely tribal. Last year when I offered myself for the presidency of this country, one of the things that people asked me, I mean, come on, Ekuru, but you are from a small tribe. You don't have money. Now it's true, I'm from a small tribe. Now, maybe if I was from a populous tribe, chances are very high, looking at the nature of our politics, probably I could be followed by a mass of people. But that does not necessarily mean trust.
So what does that say then about our democracy as Kenya? Do we really have democracy? Because we would like to believe that leaders are chosen based on numbers. Those numbers are driven by a certain narrative. And as a result, we have chosen a democratic model where majority basically take the day in terms of leadership. But then what you're saying, from what you're saying, then really we're not democratic per se.
Well, I don't think we can say we are democratic per se in the true meaning of that word. Because what is democracy? Democracy is when the sovereign donates its power to be exercised by a certain body for the benefit of the nation. That for me is what electoral democracy. And in fact, maybe, it's interesting you bring this issue because there's a very important ongoing international conference organized by Konrad Adenauer Stiftung happening right now at Sankara Hotel. And I saw your guys were there on the first day. They're actually discussing that very issue. What is electoral democracy in the context of Kenya?
Correct.
Since for me, electoral democracy in the context of Kenya is many things. We have got tribal politics, which is not necessarily, meets the tenets of electoral democracy, as I've just defined it. We also have commercialized politics in the context of Kenya. Only when you have money, that's when people can listen to you. The culture of handouts, regionalism, coalition politics, which is really about this person who has created a narrative that I command this tribe, I command this region, coming together eventually, and the rest of us just follow because mutuetu. I'm sure you've heard about the mutuetu, our person. So I don't think that really meets the real tenets of electoral democracy.
So then are we not democratic in Kenya? Is that what we're saying? Based on our
I would
model?
say if I were to give it between, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say we are probably 4% democratic. The rest is other factors. Because even for me, I would have expected that even among us, the elite, we could begin to talk about issue-based politics. In fact, some of the people who resisted, for example, my candidature, are actually the elites who said, Ekuru, but you don't have money. They didn't look at the issues that Ekuru Aukot and his party, Third Way Alliance, were proposing. Nobody actually analyzed our manifestos. And you saw the way we were even treated last year. Again, I mean, even you members of the media, I must say, Mike, you've also driven a certain narrative. For example, last year, the media drove the narrative of a two-horse race. And yet there were 8 candidates. And nobody interrogated the manifestos of those very candidates. So what persuaded, for example, the media in Kenya to keep on propagating about the two-horse narrative? Because you are also persuaded by this huge following, which does not really meet the tenets of democracy as we know it. Because democracy, I mean, electoral democracy is about issue-based policies. It's about policies, which I think we don't interrogate. The moment you are so and so, like right now, you've seen some of the members of parliament insisting that 2022, William Ruto must be president, whether we like it or not. I saw that from, I think, the Senator for Nandi, Gerald Gay, saying it the other day. I mean, come on, so what persuades him that it must be a must, you know?
But that's a politician. All we are doing is reporting what he is saying. And, of course, Kenyans have the benefit of looking at what they have to offer. What is it that they have on the table? But I'll ask you to hold
But that's
that
exactly what I would like people to do, to analyze what is on offer right now. Because right now, I mean, just again, allow me to criticize the media a little bit. There is now so much talk about 2022. Surely, it's just 1 year after the election. And I would have expected people to say, okay, what are the promises that Jubilee administration gave
But Dr. Ekuru Aukot, you have a platform here which you have been given by the media to discuss matters that matter to Kenyans. And that's exactly, but you're the one now who's bringing up 2022.
No, but,
I
was only pointing out, Mike, the fact that there's so much obsession around 2022, 1 year later. All I'm saying to you is this. I think let's not talk about 2022. Let's not talk about the handshake. Let's talk about the problems that affect Kenyans today. The cost of living, the corruption in government, lack of accountability and oversight in parliament. Those, I think, are the issues that concern Kenya. The state of our economy.
Okay,
and I want national debt.
Yes, and I want solutions from you when I come back. But let me take a call from Benson George in Kisumu. Benson, to your question or comment.
Yes, thank you so much, KTN. Now, my question to Ekuru Aukot is this. My name is Benson George of Dembo from Kisumu. What are you doing to influence the direction of the nation? See, as it is, it appears that we are going back to a one-party state. And it's so unfortunate because the gains that we've made in terms of democracy are being eroded by the handshake that we've seen and the Raila Odinga being given an appointment and sent to Kalonzo Musyoka. So effectively, we are not having any opposition either in parliament or outside parliament. So what is it that Ekuru Aukot and Third Way Alliance, what is it that you're doing to effectively influence the direction of this nation? It's really a big concern us, even as Kisumu residents, because actually the appointments that we are seeing are individuals, and these individual appointments do not reflect on any benefits on the ground to us as citizens. So please help us. I don't know. We really need some direction as a nation so that we can move on and not lose the gains that we made in terms of political democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Benson. And good question there. What exactly are you doing here?
So for example, I'll tell you what we've been doing as a political party, but I will not take you back to January, since when we started engaging Parliament, engaging the executive on a number of many issues which we documented all along, including just the idea of opposing the manner in which some positions were created, like Chief Administrative Secretary. We petitioned Parliament on the VAT bill. So we have actually engaged publicly. But I'll tell you what we are doing right now, Benson, and thanks for that very good question. As you may not be aware that we were about 2 weeks ago in Kisumu, and we were well received in Juakali, in Kondele, in Nyalenda, and Kisumu town. And we are right now proposing an amendment to our constitution, which is of greater benefit to the people of Kenya. This is the agenda we are driving, and we have not stopped petitioning Parliament, asking the executive to account through our own means, because we can only, since we are not in Parliament, we're not able to raise any motion, we can only petition the leadership in Parliament and in Senate to be able to address certain issues. So we are continuing to do that, but we are also mobilizing We are mobilizing people around issues that are of concern to them. Right now, if you look at our Punguza campaign, it's about 16 key issues that actually affect Kenyans. Number one, for example, time allowing, the question of overrepresentation. We are so overrepresented comparatively, Mike, that if you we have done a comparative analysis with about 3 countries. India, 1.3 billion people, have got 800 representatives. China, 1.4 billion people, 1,200 representatives. The United States of America, 350 million people, 535. Kenya, comparatively, 46 million people, 416. That is overrepresentation by about 400%. So we have this issue. We have this issue out there. And it comes with a second problem that we have identified in our Punguza Mizigo, the cost. Our representation right now is costing us 36.8 billion Kenya shillings annually. In our proposal, which is out there, and we hope Kenyans can actually endorse this proposal, we want to reduce that to just under 5%. 5 billion annually. We are also proposing to allocate more money to the counties because we believe it is in the counties that the people of Kenya, do you know, for example, Mike, that of our almost 3 trillion budget, only 320 billion go to the county. That's about 10%. So the rest of the 90% of our money, it actually remains up there. And that's why you're not surprised. There's so much theft of public money, but Kenya is still standing. Okay? We are also proposing things like, how do we make Senate a upper-house oversight? How do we address question of corruption? In our proposal, we want to introduce a life sentence for corrupt officials, thieves of public money. We want to introduce a time limit on how you can be tried. We are also proposing right now that let's lessen the burden of Kenya in terms of registration of voters, that if you are a Kenyan national, verified, with a national identity card, you should automatically be deemed to be a registered voter. And therefore, that IEBC should not bother us every year asking for billions of Kenya shillings to re-register Kenyans when we already have a national register. So our proposal is out there. This is what I'm doing. I think right now, like I say to you, I do not want to be drawn into the politics of 2022 because I believe there are more pressing problems on Kenyans right now, and we need to address those issues. And one of those issues for me is the cost of our constitution right now, which is why we are proposing a constitutional amendment to actually bring down the cost of running government.
All right, let me take a call from Isaac Nyabutu in Muranga. Isaac, to your question or comment, keep it brief, please, because we are...
Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, good morning. Kindly turn your television off, the volume, or at least turn the television off so that we're able to communicate.
I'm okay now. Hello. Hello.
Turn your television off so that we're able to communicate, Isaac.
I've turned it off.
Okay, to your question or comment.
Nilikuwa nataka kucomment about hiyo issues nani analyze hapo Ekuru Court.
Go ahead.
First, I would like to congratulate him to take the space as been left by the 2 leaders, Kalonzo and Raila. But I would like for him to succeed, he must elevate him from the politics of 2022 and angalie mambo ya economic na issues zenye affect wa Kenya kwanza. Lakini akiingia kwa hiyo siasa ya 2022, hapo sasa atapoteza njia, atapoteza mwelekeo. Lakini waja atetee wananchi, hapo sasa opposition imeisha na tumeona Kalonzo ameingia kwa serikali na hata Raila kwa serikali. That was my comment.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for your comment. And Ekuru Court, I'd want us now to get to almost a summary part of this interview. Yeah. And we've talked about electoral malpractice. I need to know from you, because as much as you're saying, and we agree that maybe concentrating on 2022 right now might not be the right thing, we cannot ignore the fact that some of the things that are driving us now is actually 2022, when we see some of the campaigns that are going on. Yeah. Electoral malpractice, what is the solution that you, as Third Way Alliance, have for Kenya?
First of all, I want to say that since last year, we've had our own misgivings about IEBC. I think it is in the open. I opposed, been very tough on Chebukati. I think in your show, you remember, on the show you hosted me, I was very unhappy. But as a party, we have also said this. We do not believe in disbanding of our institution, especially before elections. And right now, I know there is a political group out there that is leading a campaign to disband the current IEBC. And we have said this as a political party. The current IEBC was also a creature of the current political system. Because remember, they sat down and agreed how the IEBC will be recruited, including involving religious leaders. What we are saying as a political party, and this is my view, that let's strengthen all our institutions, including IEBC. Disbanding them is not a solution.
What does strengthening them contain?
First of all, we must give IEBC the independence it needs, especially as per the Constitution, so that it can do its work. We must stop political interferences in these institutions. We must own up to the fact that a political class also contributed to the problems at IEBC right now. So my proposal is, instead of disbanding IEBC, as some leaders are calling, and I know they are working on a strategy to disband IEBC, let's strengthen IEBC. Let's give it the necessary resources, but let's also punish mistakes in IEBC. For example, we know 9.2 billion Kenya shillings is not accounted for. We expect the DCI or DPP to move into IEBC, camp there, and tell Chebukati and his team, remaining commissioners, we want you to tell us the truth about this money. And we want to see people in IEBC being tried, being sent to jail, including those officers who may have taken part in electoral malpractice. That's what we want to see. Strengthening is not necessarily about disbanding. It's also about punishing errant officers and making them know that there's a rule of law. So this is what we are doing currently. And we are also trying to mobilize people around issue-based politics. And of course, that's why I've so far visited 14 counties. We plan to visit eastern part of coast and the northern part of Kenya. We hope we will take our campaign to as many parts of this country as possible. And I want to thank the last caller. I want to assure him that I'm not drawn into 2022 politics. I will never discuss it. I just said it here because I see out there people are talking about it. But like you say, people who are now talking about 2022 actually have nothing to offer this country, because especially those who are in government, who are running around almost every weekend making promises about infrastructure. Yet we know for the fact that Jubilee government has not even completed any infrastructure, except perhaps a part of the SGR. I don't see anything else. We have so many false political promises. They promised that from January, secondary education will be free. Parents are still paying fees, FTVs fees. We know that children, young people are being bundled out of classrooms, in exam rooms, at the university level, at high school level. So this government, in my view, has actually failed.
Has failed. All right. Do you agree that I know you don't want us to refer to the handshake, but let's just call it the unity between the leaders that we see. Do you agree do you agree that it is taking us back and has somehow made Kenya backtrack in terms of some of the gains that we have made so far?
You see, the handshake or the peace truce, whereas it is a good thing, the intention is good, Mike, the intention is good, but it's a very carefully crafted political con.
But do you think that it has taken us back? Have we backtracked?
Yes, it has backtracked us, because we are now not talking about electoral injustice. We are now not talking about the state of the economy. We are now not talking about theft of public money. We are not actually talking about the unity of all Kenyans. We are talking about the unity of just 2-3 people. So for me, it has taken us backwards, and we are being told, forget about those things that concerned you. Forget about all the happenings of last year, because now we have had a handshake. Let's forget this thing. This is typical of our Kenyan society for many years, Mike. We like to, let's forget and move on. We bury things under the sun. And for example, let's bring in another interesting aspect of this so-called handshake, the Building Bridges Initiative. You see, Building Bridges Initiative, to be honest with you, and I'm sorry to use very strong word on your show, I think it's a hopeless idea. It is a waste of our resources.
Why is it a waste?
It's unconstitutional to begin with. It is directionless. It's amorphous. It's duplicious of function. Because one of their TOR is to find out what ails this country. Now, what ails this country has been documented, and when I walked in, you cited some of those things. Yes. Kriegler, the work report, TJRC, our own constitution, the Ndungu Commission of Inquiry, and many, many others, the Akiumi Commission, the Ndungu, the OUKO on the judiciary. So the things that ail this country have been established. So if I was the Building Bridges Initiative team, the 14 guys, first of all, I should stand out to be counted and to tell the president, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I'm sorry, Mr. Raila Odinga, but we don't think we serve any purpose being in this team. Our report should be just a one-liner. Please implement already established findings on what ails Kenya in one line. And they fold up and say, if we want to keep our integrity intact, we cannot be used. And that's, for me, what I expect the Building Bridges initiative, some of my good friends like Dr. Ole Ronkai, who I've got tremendous respect for, the Attorney General Emeritus, Amos Wako, Elder Man Haji, really they should be able to tell Kenyans, come on. And you have intellectuals like Dr. Mwangi, you know, surely these are intelligent human beings who ought to know they're being used as doormats.
Okay.
They shouldn't.
All right. You've given us an answer to IEBC and electoral malpractice. Generally, what Third Way Alliance believes in economy, the economy of Kenya. Kenyans are living under one of the harshest times.
Yeah. So in terms of the economy, our proposal is very simple. Let's start from the national debt. National debt right now is about 5 trillion. Kenya shillings. And it's projected that by the time President Uhuru finishes his term, we'll be at 7 trillion. Now, we have proposed before that we would like the government to be able to structure, and this was our proposal during the State of the Nation address. We asked the President to restructure the national debt so that there is a longer repayment period. Currently, we are paying at about 800 billion annually. We cannot afford that as a country. I think President Uhuru Kenyatta should go and renegotiate on a longer repayment terms and stop borrowing immediately. And what he needs to do with the borrowed money right now, let's now invest that money into production. We are not seeing any production, Mike. We are only seeing consumerism. And we're also saying economy of this country cannot grow if we don't address issues of theft of public money. We are stealing every day. No money is being reinvested. We have to create jobs. The only way we can create jobs is, for example, to pump the money that we have into industrialization. And therefore, this takes me to the point about President Uhuru's Big Four agenda, which I think, for me, is a brilliant idea. But it will fail. And I'm sorry to say this. I'm not a prophet of doom. You cannot talk about affordable housing, affordable healthcare, industrialization, and food security when we are not producing. Kenyan land is so arable. I mean, all we need to do is invest our money. Today, most of the functions of CDF, for example, have been taken over by the county governments. Most of the functions that ministries at national level are still holding are actually functions of the government. Look at, for example, agriculture, food production. These are all devolved functions. Healthcare. These are very important functions. But we are still holding a lot of money at the national level. So the economy cannot improve until we pump money into productivity, into creating opportunities for Kenyans. That, for us, is our position, and we have maintained this. We have advised the government. We have sent our memoranda to government, but it seems that nobody is listening.
All right, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, we'll have to wind up now. I'll need you to give us your parting shot and possibly what you have to tell Kenyans on the way forward.
I think I want to tell Kenyans is this. Let's not dwell on the past, especially dwelling on the past of handshakes, building bridges, last year's election. Let's now seek solutions to the problems that affect us today. And those problems are the cost of living, unemployment, which is currently about 70%, asking this government to account for stolen money. And I want Kenyans to maintain peace. Let's not be drawn into discussing about individuals. We need to begin about our own concerns, our own problems. And let's also be the alternative. You know, most Kenyans like to cheer some leaders. I think Kenyans need to see themselves as the alternative. And let's think outside the box. Third Way Alliance Kenya is here. There are many other political parties out there. I mean, let's learn from our mistakes of last year. We made a mistake. We thought that we are electing people who are responsive to us. But I think right now we all know that we've been betrayed and that we need to think outside the box. So please, I will also urge Kenyans finally that the Punguza Mizigo campaign is out there. Just go to our website, thirdwayalliance.com, if you have got a smartphone, and you can actually log into it, and we can go into a referendum early next year or mid next year. We try to save money before 2022.
Dr. Ekuru Aukot, leader of Third Way Alliance, thank you for joining us this morning on State of the Nation. And that's where we're going to wind up this interview, but Morning Express continues after the break.